Welcome aboard the Ear to There podcast, the podcast that'll help you vacation like a pro in any Disney destination. For those of you standing, please sit down and hold on throughout our journey and get ready to learn how to have the time of your life. And now, here's your host, Phil Gramlich.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ear to There podcast. I'm your host, Phil Gramlich. I am also the owner and operator of Ear to There Travel, which is a Disney specialized travel agency. It's my job to take away the stress, the anxiety, and the time that it takes to plan a Disney trip so you can focus on the fun things like having a great time with your family and friends and enjoying the magic. You can find this podcast, my blog, or request a free no-obligation quote over at eartotheretravel.com. This is episode number 37 for the week of October 10th, 2016. Now grab a drink, grab a snack, and as a famous mouse once said, on with the show.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land. Here age relives fond memories of the past, and here youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future. Disneyland is dedicated to the ideals, the dreams, and the hard facts that have created America, with the hope that it will be a source of joy and inspiration to all the world. Thank you.
Okay, so it's time for a confession right off the bat on this episode of the podcast. That Walt Disney Disneyland dedication speech is on my iPod. I just wanted to let you know right away that yes, this is what you're dealing with when you deal with me. And as I say all the time on this podcast, I love all things Disney, but I have a special place in my heart, and I always will, for Disneyland. Recently, I had a friend of mine book a trip to Disneyland through me. And when she started looking at what she wanted to do in Disneyland, she realized it's completely different than booking a trip to Walt Disney World. And instantly, a show topic was born. This week, we're going to talk all about the differences between booking a trip to Walt Disney World versus booking a trip to Disneyland. And because I alone can't explain just how different a Disneyland trip is from a Walt Disney World trip, I had to call in the big guns this week. Here to help me talk about the happiest place on earth is one of the happiest Disney fans I actually know. She's a Disneyland annual pass holder, a Walt Disney World annual pass holder, and she's a college test prep pro, that was hard to say, from higherscorestestprep.com. Lauren Gaggioli, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. At 5'1", I've never been called the big gun, so I'm pretty excited for this new moniker. Thank you, Phil.
That's you and me both. I'm 5'7". I don't get much of that.
Right?
And I know it's my wife who's barely pushing 5 feet. We're not a big, tall group of people.
We're petite people.
That's true. I would have fit very well into like medieval England.
There you go.
I might have been tall back then.
Yeah, you would have been a giant.
That's true. All right, so thank you again for coming on. This is going to be cool. Because I know we were just saying before we hit record, you're kind of you were a Disneyland first kind of person, and I'm the absolute opposite of that. I mean, I didn't go to Disneyland for my first trip until my wife and I were on our honeymoon in 2008. So I always wanted to get out there. I always wanted to see, I've been a big Walt Disney fan for as long as I can remember. I've read the biographies and the stories about how Disneyland was built. And so this will be cool to kind of get your, like as a kind of a local, your thought process on just how different it is than Walt Disney World.
Absolutely. And, I had kind of a different experience. We moved around when I was a kid. When I was like 4, my dad told me, every year I'll take you to Disneyland. And we were local in Southern California and then moved up to the Bay Area. So Disneyland is really like my first park. That was my first big girl roller coaster experience, and all that. Matterhorn was like iconic as a part of being in the hub. But at about 10 years old, we moved to Atlanta, and I was devastated because I thought, oh my gosh, our trip is now done. Like, I'm never going to Disneyland again. And my dad said, no, there's this other place we never told you about. There is Disney World. And so from a very young age, I really had the perspective of both parks. So while Disneyland is definitely my home park, I have a lot of experience in the Disney World Resort, and I love them both for such different reasons, which is why I'm a crazy person with passes at both.
Yeah, that's funny. That's exactly kind of where I wanted to start, was why, what you love about them, because they're so similar in a way, like Magic Kingdom and Disneyland, but they're completely different in another way.
Oh,
I can't explain it if you haven't been to both, but when you walk, if you're a Disney World person, you've been to Disney World like I was, 20 plus times before you get to Disneyland. When you walk into Disneyland, it feels really, really familiar, but so different. Like, it's just from when you walk under the train station, that's, the train station is completely different. And there's a level of detail everywhere and I don't want to rip on Walt Disney World, because obviously it's one of my favorite places on the planet, but there's this level of detail, this tiny, like, that most people wouldn't notice. But if you've never been there, when you walk in, you really do notice it. I mean, I remember walking into Disneyland for the first time and looking to my left after came in on the right-hand side, the right-hand tunnel, and I looked to my left after I came out of the tunnel, and there's like this really ornate, like these like vines, like this planter going up the wall. Mm-hmm. And for some reason that struck me. I was like, wow, this is different. It's a really different feel walking in there. You know what I mean?
And I think part of it I think there's two reasons, really, Phil. The first is the era in which it was built. The 50s, quite a different, just in terms of manufacturing and production, quite a different spirit of things, I would say, than the 70s. So, you have newer technologies, new composites that have come out that can go into the building of Disney World that make it also very impermeable to the Florida weather, the heat and the humidity. Those concerns really aren't there. So you get a lot of like natural wood and ornate woodworking and things like that. It has Walt's hand on it. With Walt had a lesser perspective on budgeting, as we all know. So, I think you feel Roy's influence maybe a little more in Disney World. But, the other thing is when you have a much more compact space, which that's the thing that I think Disneyland people who are going to Disneyland for the first time need to realize. It's so much smaller. And you start thinking about how there's less space to fill. They can put more in that space with the same, and have it feel more compact and have a higher level of detail than, filling this grand canvas in the middle of a swamp in Florida. So it's a much different feel. And like a lot of it is just how it was built and the influences therein. But I really feel like at Disneyland, you can feel Walt's spirit. Like, that sounds kind of woo-woo and out there, but I really do feel like you feel his hand on the park in a very different way. Again, I love them both, and they both have really amazing things to offer, but I think is one of the main differences of Disneyland.
Yeah, when you said that you can feel Walt in the park, you really can. That's one thing that I really wanted to do was I looked at like pictures of where Walt Disney was, and you can go to these places. They're still there. They still exist on Main Street USA and Times Square and Fantasyland. Well, Fantasyland's been overhauled, but I guess that was in the 80s, I think, right? That they redid all that.
Yeah, I forget the exact time frame, but yeah, like the pirate ship and stuff is all gone and whatnot. How cool would that have been to see? Oh my gosh!
I know. I look at pictures of that all the time, and I'm like, oh man. But yeah,
if only.
Yeah, right. But I think they have that somewhere, right? They have that in one of the parks in Asia. I forget which one it is.
Oh, do they?
I think that exists somewhere. I got to look that up. But
Phil, we need a trip.
I know.
You plan it, I'll go.
Yeah, right. Well, no. What I was saying is, like, you can go to there's this picture of Walt standing on the steps at the train station at the front of the park, and this is how much of a nerd I am. I have a picture of me in that same pose.
Oh,
that's how much of that's a nerd central over here. But
absolutely not. I go up and talk to the engineers about the trains all the time. You're talking to a fellow nerd here.
I mean, listen, that is neat to be able to do that. To be able to say, this guy who did all of this, who made Walt, made Disneyland, made Walt Disney World a reality, who built this company from nothing to, I mean, geez, the huge being that it is today, you can just kind of, it's cool. And I still have to get up to his apartment. I've got to see that.
I know.
And I didn't get to do the old Club 33. Now I need to get to do the new Club 33. I got to see that as well. I don't know.
I got to go for my very first time about a month or two ago. Oh, Phil, it's gorgeous. Yeah. It's really impressive. Yeah, it's just very special. Yeah,
I'm really jealous.
You'll get there.
I've seen it. Yeah, well, I'm trying. I've said it before. I have a friend who works in the parks there in California, and he's been begging me to come out. He has access to some things like that, so maybe before he comes back to the East Coast to work for Walt Disney World again, I'll have to get out there and check it out. But
you tell me when you're here. We'll go up and make a day of it.
Yeah, I'm ready. Well, definitely for D23. I'm definitely coming out for that.
Fantastic. Okay, so, I'm planning to go too.
Cool. All right.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's quickly talk about like the differences, right?
Okay.
For people who were so used to going to Walt Disney World, like you were saying about Disneyland, the size of it, the scope of it is so much smaller. I feel like they do kind of cram a lot into that little space that they have, especially in Disneyland Park itself. I mean, not even talking about California Adventure.
Right.
Their Fantasyland, you walk in and you feel like every couple of feet there's another attraction. It's really on top of each other, but they still have Snow White's Scary Adventure. There's Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, Peter Pan's Flight. You have the Carousel. You have, Casey Jr. You have the Storybook Land Canal Boats. It's all like right. And I feel like if you spin around, they're all within you can see them all in the same little spot. And I didn't mention Pinocchio, which if you've never been to Disneyland, if you're just a Walt Disney World person, that's a really kind of creepy but cool ride to take.
It is a little creepy, yeah. I don't have kids, so I don't really do the Fantasyland thing all that much. But when my nephew's out, yeah, we'll do. Casey Jr. is unique. Storybook is unique to Disneyland. Mr. Toad, rest in peace at Disney World, is unique here. We don't have the 2 tracks, so that is a difference. So if you missed that, sorry. This is not a choose your own adventure. You just go the 1 track, but yeah, and the other thing I think that's really interesting about our Fantasyland, like, oh my gosh, I have to say the first time I saw the expansion at Disney World, I almost cried. It's so beautiful. However, Fantasyland proper, the fronts with like the fanfare and whatnot and like the pageantry and like all the tapestry looking things. To me, that is the element that is so much different at Disneyland than it is in Disney World, because we don't have that like tapestry or whatnot. We have basically what looks like iconic, like the home. So like you have thatched roofs over, by Snow White, and the Queen's up in her window looking out. If you're looking out carefully, Pinocchio's over on that side. Then on the other side, there's Peter Pan and Mr. Toad. So they're both England, and you get kind of the English architecture. Alice is right around the corner there, which is something we didn't mention, but that's unique here. Our teacups are tiny. And then right there is the Matterhorn. So in terms of like geography and feeling like you're in the place in the place that those movies were set, I feel like Disneyland, I hate to say it does it better, but it does it differently. And I think it sets the stage in a way that doesn't really happen Mickey's PhilharMagic and Small World, which I think are the front of Small World at Disneyland. That's the one area that is more expansive, I think, in our park. There's not much that's more expansive, but that is one area that it's got this nice vista, and you can stand in front and look at it. And it's as I understand it, the original front from World's Fair in the 60s.
Yeah, I remember being blown away when I saw that for the first time, because I was so used to the Magic Kingdom version, which is kind of, hidden under a roof, and you don't really see it. And it's nice, and it's well done. And again, I don't want to rip Walt Disney World because I love it, but Disneyland is better. The facade is better. It's the load area is outside, which is really cool. Mm-hmm. And you could never do an outdoor, loading area for a boat in Walt Disney World. You just couldn't do it.
There's a lot of problems with that.
Yeah, you'd be overflowing several times a day.
Exactly.
But it's very cool to get out there and see it. It's so different. The rides itself, the 2 rides itself, the tracks are different. Some of the rooms are different. And the Disneyland version has, of course, the classic Disney characters that are on the attraction now, which I remember when that first, got announced, people had a lot of problems with that.
Oh, yeah.
But it's really tasteful. It's well done. I really I think they've done a really good job with it.
So do they not have that at Disney World?
They don't. No.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Do you guys have Mary Blair?
It's the Mary Blair, design.
But no, the Mary Blair doll.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's a little different. I actually just went on it. My mom and I went, I forget why, just for fun, I think. And we were like, we haven't been on Small World in years. Let's go. Cause she loves Storybook, and she's a very slow paced. Let's do the gentle rides. And that was something that I really enjoy about that ride now. Attraction.
Get it right.
Yeah, I know the lingo. It's all off.
I do it all the time. I keep calling Disney Springs Downtown Disney. I keep doing it on every episode of this podcast.
Yeah,
gotta figure it out.
Old habits, they die hard.
It's true. But my father-in-law, his favorite ride on the planet is Small World. And my kids now love it. My kids love it. We ride it, 4 or 5 times a trip. It's great, I guess. I like it. I like Small World. I can't say, but you've ridden it. You know it. You know the ride.
Yeah.
It's I like that I survived It's a Small World shirts. I think they're great.
I haven't seen those.
Oh, no, what's funny is I've seen people make their own, and then I saw at Magic Kingdom they actually sell them now. They sell it's like a very kind of cartoony, and it says I survived.
Oh my gosh.
Great.
That's brilliant.
But yeah, though it is better, the facade itself is better in Disneyland. I believe the ride is a little longer in Walt Disney World. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have that backwards. I'll have to double check. But I also love the overlay, the Christmas overlay that it gets out in Disneyland as well. I think that's very, very cool, and it's something that Walt Disney World probably could borrow from. I think that's something that would drive the traffic to that part of the park a little bit more.
Absolutely.
It was funny, as you were saying, too, the Magic Kingdom still very much has the kind of circus tent, not a circus tent, but kind of medieval courtyard kind of atmosphere in their Fantasyland.
Yeah.
And it's a lot like Disneyland's was originally in the 50s and 60s and I guess 70s too. I would not mind if they redid Fantasyland to kind of match New Fantasyland a bit. Change the facades up, make it like Disneyland a little bit. I think that would really kind of up their game. And
I mean, with the expansion that they have, once you're beyond, and out into, where Little Mermaid is and all that, I think they've done a beautiful job there. But, if they could make it so it's more of a gradual transition just architecturally, I think it would really help with the continuity of story. And I really think it would help people feel like they're in the world maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, you're right. And I think it's not gradual really at all. There's there's the castle perimeter wall, I guess they put up to kind of make it feel like your transition, but it's not.
Yeah.
You walk out and then all of a sudden it's you're hit with amazing theming and story, but in Fantasyland, you don't really get the story until you go into the attractions. You're right. It's very, very different than the Disneyland version, which is a reason why you have to go to the Disneyland.
Absolutely. And Casey Jr., if you've got little kids, oh my gosh, you get to ride in you're Casey Jr., so you get to ride inside the monkey car, or you can be in the lion car, whatever. It's so cute. It's so fun. And again, little ones go crazy on that ride. It's every little kid's favorite ride. And it's just so sad it's not at Disney World, but I guess it's just one of those amazing things that you just have to come out and you get to appreciate them in their home. It's not that everything is supposed to be in the alternate place, it gives you reason to explore more of the parks. So
yeah, you're right. And I like that it's not but I like that they have attractions that are unique to both places.
Absolutely.
Especially now with California Adventure.
Yes.
With Cars.
Where I was going next too.
Oh my God. I'll tell you what, when I first got out there, now listen, like I said, my first trip to Disneyland was in 2008, and that was old California Adventure.
Yes.
And then my second trip, crazily enough, was 2009, because we liked it so much, and we had friends that were going out there who were cast members who were like, hey, listen, come out with us, we'll get you in the park for free every day. So, of course, we jumped on that. So,
absolutely.
Right, so that was transition California Adventure. They were knocking things down. So, I was like, all right, whatever. It was still fun, but then when I went back in 2000, I think my next trip wasn't until 2015. And when you walk into that park, oh my God, I think that's my, well, I can't say it's my second. My parks, by the way, I own them.
Wow.
I know.
Still learning things about you.
my top three, it has to go Disneyland Park, Magic Kingdom, and then California Adventure.
Wow.
It's that good. It's that great park. I know, and I'm a Walt Disney World nerd. I'm a Disney,
Yeah.
But they've redone that park. The theming is so good.
Yes.
It's like it's walking into it's a completely different park than it was before.
And there's nothing like it. So, I can't help but go there. Cars Land. Like my dad, he has MS, so he was in a wheelchair. Was like he was my Disney buddy. Like he and I would go all the time. And when he first got diagnosed, he was like reticent to go, and it was right when the transition was happening. So it was like, oh, we don't get to go and see this together. Well, I finally convinced him to get an annual pass this year. And when he saw Cars Land, his mouth dropped. I mean, he was just like, what? He goes, this is gorgeous. This is so, and he goes, this is my childhood. Like, he was really excited by it. And just you always talk about seeing Disney through like a kid's eyes. This was the exact opposite, seeing it through an adult's eyes. But it was like just as magical, which I think is, and when you see little kids see like Lightning McQueen on the street, they lose their minds. It's awesome. And I agree with you 100%. The theming that, they had issues, and they put in, I want to say, as much money as they had put in to originally build the park to basically rebuild the park. And they knocked it out of the park the second time. So I'm really glad they reinvested, because it now is worthy of a day. Before it was like, oh, let's go ride Tower Terror and then we'll go back to Disneyland. But no, now like there's enough there that's to be enjoyed.
You're right.
Over a longer period of time.
Yeah, you're right. And that's actually the perfect segue into what I wanted to bring up was the proximity, the closeness of the two parks. Like you said, you could spend a day there. But if you have a park hopper, if you have the park hopper option to your ticket, going between the parks and going to Downtown Disney, it's still called Downtown Disney there. Downtown Disney.
You're not messing it up.
Right. No, I had to double check. And going to the three hotels, the three resorts, you can get anywhere in a matter of, what do you think, 10 minutes tops?
Oh, yeah.
I think. I mean, that's the other thing I was blown away by was how close everything is. You can get, I remember my wife, Amy, and we had dinner at Carthay Circle in.
Oh, so good.
That's amazing. That's a whole different podcast. Just to talk about that place.
Oh my gosh, we have to talk about Disneyland food.
Listen, well, I just mentioned this on a podcast with Lee Cockrell. I think it was my last one, about how Walt Disney World has upped their game tremendously on the food side. But Disneyland is like the food mecca as far as theme park food. It's ridiculous, the food out there.
Yeah.
But, we ate at Carthay Circle, and we had a couple hours left. We ate dinner late. It was like an 8:30, 9 o'clock reservation. And we said, let's, I looked at my watch. I said, we have another hour or two for the park. And she said, you know what I really want to do? I want to do Buzz Lightyear because we haven't done it on this trip. So from the time we walked out of Carthay Circle in California Adventure to the time we got on Buzz Lightyear, it was like 9 minutes. It's crazy how quickly you can get between the two. I mean, they're, a football throw away from each other, which is something that's completely different in Walt Disney World, because the closest to, I think, are Hollywood Studios and Epcot. And my family and I make that walk back and forth all the time. We always walk between those two parks. But that takes, a half hour, 35 minutes. I mean, you're talking, just right across the parking lot, basically, is how close you are. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And that plaza area is so nice too. Like if you're there a little early and, let's say you didn't buy a full day ticket, you can still go watch the fireworks just by standing in that plaza, and you can see them over the train station. I mean, and it's just a really small, but also nice little kind of pathway to transition between the parks. So, yeah, I mean, and that's something, another thing we should bring up is I was going to say, you know, I've had that experience too, Phil, where I'll be standing in California Adventure and look at my Fast Pass for Disneyland and be like, okay, I got to like start heading over there because it just started. You know, it's like an hour, and you would never do that really at Disney World. Like if you got an hour to get to your ride, they and you're in the wrong park, good luck.
Yeah, you're done.
Know, it's probably not happening.
Yeah.
But that also brings up the fast pass system, which, you know, I think between fast pass and the ADRs at Disneyland, you know, it's a much more relaxed park. And I think that comes from the fact that a lot of us are locals and we'll go for a couple hours and leave. Like, think about just the getting in and parking at Disney World. Like, you're committed to a couple hours if you're doing that. Like, people really just, they kind of pop in for some time. I have friends who go every single day just for, you know, an hour just to walk around, and then they pop back in their car and head home. It's really more of a locals park. So the atmosphere sort of resembles that and reflects that. So if you have a restaurant you absolutely have to get to, yeah, you need to make a reservation, you know, but I've been standing in the park and I'll be like, oh, look at that. They have an opening at this point. I'll make a reservation in line and it'll be my next stop to just go to that restaurant. So it's a much more relaxed atmosphere. But I also jumped over the fast passes too, so we should talk about that too.
Yeah, no, what you were saying is exactly right. It's how I feel like it's how people say Walt Disney World used to be. You know what I mean? It's like,
yes,
God, I miss the old days where you didn't have to schedule your dining reservations 180 days out, and you didn't have to schedule fast passes 60 or 30 days out. Which, again, shameless plug. I do that for you. I'm free. I'm cheap. I'm cheap labor over here. I'll do it for you. But it is. It's way more relaxed. You don't have to know what you're doing. You can show up the morning of, and you know, go and get your old school paper fast pass as soon as you get to the park. Which I'd recommend doing if you're going to Disneyland. I don't know about you, Lauren. I'd say if you're going to Disneyland Park, I'd say grab Indiana Jones Fast Passes first thing. That's my first stop.
Oh, Indy.
And if I'm going
I'm usually a Space Mountain girl first. That's usually where I stop. Unless it's a hot day, then usually Splash. But yeah, you got to do Indy. That's another thing that we haven't mentioned is different rides and stuff. I mean, that one, oh, it's so good.
And I think it's me maybe coming from more of a Walt Disney World, because while the rides are very different, I don't get Indy where I always go. So that's where and when I go to California Adventure, as soon as I walk in, my first stop is the Radiator Springs Racers Fast Pass line, because I need to make sure I get, I try to do that a couple times a day when I'm in that park, just because it's like, it almost feels like a choose your own adventure ride, because whatever side you get depends. It's a different ride experience, and God, it's a great ride. But
it's fantastic.
So Again, the fast passes for Disneyland are paper. It's just like the old system at Walt Disney World used to be. And the dining reservations, the ADRs, can be made up to 60 days out. But as Lauren was saying, you don't have to. You can walk into a Disneyland restaurant. Day of and walk in or wait. Which a lot of times in Disneyland or Walt Disney World, you can't do it all. Right. So many places now, if you want to get and to be our guest, and you think you're going to, at the Magic Kingdom, and you think you're going to walk up and get it, you have another thing coming. It's not going to happen.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, like, I've been in Disneyland, and now I'm not recommending this, but I've been to Disneyland, and I've walked up and got into the Blue Bayou, with a 40-minute wait.
Yeah.
And you can do it. I'd recommend still, like you said, if it's something you really, really want to do, make reservations for it. But
absolutely.
It's not a must. Like in Walt Disney World, it's a must. I have people, clients all the time who say, I know what I'm doing. And I don't want to, this isn't, I'm not making fun of them by any means. What I'm saying is you don't know. If you haven't booked a trip in a while, you need to prepare. You need to make reservations. You need to have those things booked. Disneyland is very much more laid back, and you're right. It's a locals park. I kind of like that. Like, being able to show up morning of and just kind of let my day take me where it does.
Absolutely. I mean, I think too, it's you think about Disney World, like you go for a week or you go for a long amount of time and you may never leave property. That doesn't typically happen at Disneyland. There's so much to see in Southern California that like really, really close by. You don't have, this expansive property surrounding with many, many resorts. I mean, there's 3 and they're all walking distance, and there's a lot to do in the parks, but in terms of on property outside of the parks, there's not a ton. So getting up to LA and going to Grauman's, if you've seen it at Hollywood Studios, then you might want to go see the real thing. That you can do that in a day. There's beaches, there's great shopping, and a lot of fun stuff that's all around. So it's definitely, I think, even as a vacation, a Disneyland vacation can include so much outside of Disney, and you can still feel like you get a lot of Disney, all kind of mixed in. So I think it's a little bit of a different mindset. And I think that, while the parks themselves are incredible, there's just a lot doing, and there's a city literally right beyond Disney property as opposed to beautiful, landscape and whatnot.
Wait, there's things outside of Disneyland?
Believe it or not, that I don't know about Orlando because I don't do that in Orlando. But Anaheim, yeah.
See, I lived in Celebration. I know Orlando. I know the area. What's so funny is I've been to Disneyland now 4 times. 3 in 5 times. 3 in the last year and a half. And I've literally gotten my rental car or gotten on the Disneyland, I think it's the Disneyland Express, and have gone straight to Disneyland. The furthest I've gone is is the In-N-Out burger that's closest to Disneyland because I wanted to try.
So you got something that wasn't the Disney experience.
Sure. I was very much I was immersed in a Southern California culture because I went to In-N-Out burger.
Absolutely.
But you know what? Nobody told me about the animal style thing. And I went and got a regular burger.
Thank you.
Yeah, I went and got a regular burger and I was like, that's all right. And then when I got home, my friends were like, you didn't try the animal style? I was like, I don't even know what that is. So yeah, if you go out, you got to try the animal style. It's pretty cool.
I just get a regular burger, animal style fries. That's my play. But everybody's different.
It's and what actually is it? It's like a ketchup and mustard, and I don't even know what it is.
I think it's with the fries, it's cheese, grilled onions, and spread. So they do a Thousand Island dressing as their spread, but I think on the burger they do a mustard in addition to that, and pickles.
Yeah, that's awesome. I should do that next time. All right. Yeah. I got gypped when I went to In-N-Out.
Well, you got to come back.
I know. I'm D23. I'm going to be there. Okay.
Awesome.
So you mentioned the resorts. You said there's only 3, and it's true. But the one thing I want people to realize too is the Good Neighbor resorts that are all kind of up and down outside, all over the place outside the park. A lot of them you can walk to Disneyland from. A lot of them offer a shuttle, or most of the time it's free. Sometimes it's pretty cheap to get the shuttles from those resorts. And generally that area is I don't want to, it's pretty safe to walk, from your resort, those resorts outside. I used to stay at the Carousel Inn, but that's, I think, is that down yet? It's getting almost time for they're going to tear that place down. And next,
are they?
Yeah, I think this month, if they haven't started to. Yeah, that's the one. It's directly across the street from Disneyland, from the entrance, and Disney bought that building, have been operating it. Well, I guess just owning it, but letting Carousel operate it for the last year or so. But that's where they're going to move a lot of their corporate offices to. And they're going to build a bridge over, is that Harbor Boulevard? It's Harbor Boulevard right there, right?
Yes, yeah.
So they're going to build a pedestrian bridge over that to make it a little easier to, and
nice.
There's going to be a new parking lot there and the buildings, and it's going to be pretty cool. So I used to stay at the Carousel. The Carousel's gone, as far as I'm sure it'll be gone by the time this is on the podcast.
I had a friend stay there last month, so I haven't been since. So they may have already begun demolition.
Sure. But
interesting.
But yeah, so there's other places. I mean, there's And what's cool about booking the Good Neighbor hotels too is you can still book through Disney and get your tickets, your Magic Morning, your, that kind of thing. You can,
Yes.
So, Disneyland is very good with working with the Good Neighbor hotels because, like you said, there's only 3 Disney resorts. And to be honest with you, and I'm, a Disney travel agent, I'm in it to help people and I'm in it to make money. They're expensive. They're not like, they don't have any value resorts.
No.
Disneyland.
No.
I mean, you're talking Grand Californian and Disneyland Hotel, which kind of vie for, you kind of go back and forth sometimes on which one's more expensive.
Right.
And then Paradise Pier, which is I would guess you compare it to a moderate in Walt Disney World, but it can even be a little more expensive. I mean, they're pretty pricey if you want to stay on property there.
Well, and that's the thing that like having Disneyland in the middle of Anaheim, Walt always said if we could have afforded more land, we would have bought it, but we just couldn't afford it at the time. And once people realized what was there, development just started around it. But it is pretty safe. It doesn't necessarily feel safe when you're driving in. So, for those who are really like used to the Disney touch on everything, it is in the middle of an urban area. So you do need to just, be aware that you are off property, but it is generally very safe. I've never heard of anybody having an issue. I've walked around out there late at night, and it's not been a problem. So I think that's just something to be aware of, that like the Good Neighbor hotels do work with Disney. And I think Disney, they're definitely keeping the area around them very safe. And there's a definite police presence to ensure that continues and that families are protected.
Yeah, you're right. I've never felt unsafe there. I mean, you're right. But though coming in, when you come off, I know you guys call them freeways out there. I'm not used to it.
We do.
So when you come off the freeway and I had to say that, like, you can't see me, but I just did air quotes. But when you get off the freeway out there and you get to your hotel or you get to Disneyland, it is a weird thing for people who are used to the bubble of Walt Disney World. Totally. Because you can see the Matterhorn, you can see Tower of Terror, you can see the back of of Cars Land, like like the building, the skeleton from the street, which is really a weird thing. I remember from my hotel room, I could see both Matterhorn and Tower of Terror, like right out my window. And that's not something you're used to unless you're staying, at Walt Disney World, unless you're staying at like the Contemporary, or you're staying at one of the Boardwalk hotels. I mean, the Epcot hotels like Boardwalk or Beach Club. So, yeah, but it's for Walt Disney World, veterans to get, to be pulling down the street and see a Disney attraction next to, a supermarket. It's a really weird thing. Like, you're like, whoa.
Totally.
Yeah, it's very strange. All right, so what I wanted to get to really quickly are the attractions, right? Because
yes,
there are very similar attractions, but they're really different. It's kind of hard to explain it. So, like Peter Pan's Flight, okay, Walt Disney World. I love they put in the interactive queue. I think that adds a ton to it. But the attraction itself in Disneyland versus Walt Disney World it's a little different. It's Disneyland. I think, God, I'm gonna make so many enemies. It's a little bit better, in my opinion. I know. But then again, like I say, that's a little bit better. And Pirates, I don't know if you agree. I think Disneyland does it a little bit better.
We have extra rooms. What's not to love?
Exactly.
There's more ride.
Yeah, it's a better attraction.
And you float through the bayou. It sets the stage, and then you go down into the caves. Like, yeah, I just went on Disney World the last time I was out there a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I think I like ours a little bit more, just because it is a slower, longer ride. So yeah, I definitely would agree on that front.
And so they did you get the kind of feeling from the Blue Bayou in the Mexico Pavilion at Epcot, that when they put now I can't remember, the Three Caballeros. What the heck is the name of the ride now? I'm not remembering.
I just went on
Del Tiempo. Now
Del Tiempo, yeah.
Now what is it called? Grand Fiesta Tour, starring the Three Caballeros. That you get kind of the same feeling. It's not exactly, but you get on it and the boat goes around the restaurant inside the pyramid in Mexico. It's very cool. Pretty similar. Not the same thing. It's not the same feeling. You don't have
Same smell.
Yeah, it is the musty water smell. But you don't have the fireflies or anything.
No, and the night sounds of a bayou.
Yeah. Well, wait. Speaking of attractions that are similar and different, you guys unfortunately are losing, or very soon, Tower of Terror out there, which was kind of a bummer.
But our theming isn't as good. I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
our theming really isn't as good on that one. It feels like clean and new. And it doesn't set the tone. So I'm A-okay with us losing that. We're getting Guardians of the Galaxy, so that'll be a reason to come out. Yes. They're making it the Collector's Tower, and so it'll be fun. I mean, the music will be great. It'll be interesting to see how they weave a story out of that. But
I didn't even think about the music. I hope they get the rights to those songs on that attraction. That'll be very cool.
It's going to be awesome.
But you're right. It's not. The one in Hollywood Studios is iconic. I mean, you turn down Sunset Boulevard and you see it at the end of the street, and it's storytelling from the time you get on Sunset until the time you're finished riding the attraction.
Absolutely.
You're right. In California Adventure, it doesn't really even fit as much with the area these days.
No.
I don't know how Guardian of the Galaxy is going to fit with that area, but.
Well, there's that.
Right. But I mean, you're right. It just doesn't have that same feel. It doesn't have that iconic, like, almost, I don't know, like it should be there type feel that the one in Hollywood Studios has. Yeah. So I was really happy that when that rumor came out that people weren't, that nobody was right saying that the one at Hollywood Studios was going to be replaced, because I'd be upset. That's one thing that I would be really upset about.
Yes. I that was the first thing I Googled was, okay, we're losing it, but come on, Disney World, hang on to that. We need it. Yeah,
really. So, and then we were saying Small Worlds, is different. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think. Obviously, Disneyland has Indiana Jones.
Our Haunted Mansion is very different.
Yes, and it has the overlay too.
It's over in New Orleans Square. So I think there's two things about New Orleans Square, well, in addition to Pirates, that you really need to see. We've got the Haunted Mansion is more of a kind of antebellum feel. It's very in the South. If you've been to the Six Flags in Atlanta, it looks like the monster house thing that they have there. So if that's a good, East Coast reference for you, it's white with green wrought iron. And we have an amazing Halloween overlay with Nightmare Before Christmas. So it's up right now and goes through the holidays. And then also, I think our Phantasmic is absolutely worth mentioning because it happens on the Rivers of America. So I think that gives it such a different dynamic. It's changing, and it's not running right now because they're building Star Wars in a very odd place, which I'm we'll see how that goes. But I do think that's something to definitely check out if you're out here, for sure.
Yeah, I actually really, really liked Phantasmic out there. I thought it was it's a completely different, kind of almost surreal experience to see that on the Rivers of America. I get why people too. I love the Disney World one. Don't get me wrong. I think it's handled a little bit better, only because of the seating and all that. It's kind of a pain to have to wait a long time to get in there to see the show, though. But it's very different in Disneyland. It's very cool, and I'm curious as to how the entrance to Star Wars Land is going to fit. I know
that's going to be a rough transition.
I know, and I think it's going to have to be kind of almost not hidden, because you can't hide it, obviously. But I think in Hollywood Studios, it's going to be this grand, huge, open, area that you walk through. And Disneyland are going to, I guess, they're going to have to be a little trickier about it to make it kind of blend into that. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, I mean, for those who are listening, it's right behind Big Thunder. And so it's in the transition. So our layout's different. Our Big Thunder is right in the transition from Fantasyland. You go Big Thunder into Adventureland or into Frontierland, and then it's Adventureland, and then we have the New Orleans Square area, and then you have Splash beyond that, and our Winnie the Pooh is over there as well. So it's I mean, when they first said it was going up, I thought they might put it in California Adventure, to be honest.
Right.
Somewhere over there. I'm really confused as to, I mean, I know they had the space there. I almost wish they didn't bring it here. That's a horrible thing for me to say. Disneyland people, I'm sorry. I think it fits so perfectly in Disney World in Hollywood Studios. Like, it's going to be incredible there. Like, I almost don't even care to go see it here because I just feel like the story is off and it doesn't fit. So we'll see about that and how it all goes in practice. I mean, obviously I'm going to go, but I love where it is going to be in Disney World. And I just think it fits the story there a lot better.
We're supposed to be telling people why they should go to Disneyland.
I know. I'm being honest, okay?
Yeah, no, you know what?
But there's so many other things, and that's another thing to consider. Once Star Wars opens, oh my gosh, come to Disneyland. Do everything else because it's going to be empty.
You're right. You know what's funny is when I was out at D23 when they announced it, and I was kind of shocked that they were going to put it in Disneyland. I really couldn't.
Right?
And especially the placement of it, like you said. And I'm such a dork, and I did think that. I was like, man, this is going to mess up the feel of the park.
Right?
It's not going to be the same, and I like the charm of it. I like the old, the nostalgia of it. But listen, I'm just going to put on my Disney blinders and say, whatever they do, I'm not going to. It's going to be fine. They're going to figure it out. So whoever's listening, yes, still go to Disneyland.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's not a reason to not come.
No,
it's just if you're going to go see Star Wars for the first time, do it in Disney World. It's going to be so cool there.
I'm very, very excited. I don't know if I'm as excited as you are for the new Star Wars land, but my poor daughter, she has her Rey costume already. She wore it. She wears it at home, and yeah, she has no chance in life. She's going to be a dork like her dad and proud of it.
Absolutely. She has every chance in life because if you own that early, you are ahead of the game for sure.
Yeah, she definitely has. She told Kylo Ren that he would never be as strong as Darth Vader to his face in her Rey outfit. Yeah.
Kylo's scary. I met him and I was jumping. I'm proud of her.
Yeah, my daughter, that was Alexa, our 5-year-old. Our 3-year-old Zoe ran as soon as he looked at them. She said, "Mommy!" And she ran. Oh man, she head for the hills. That was it. She was out. All right, Lauren. So I don't want to take up any more of your time. So thank you so much for coming on. This was really fun.
Phil?
Yes.
There are two other attractions that we didn't mention that I think are worth noting. I just want to make sure that we give California Adventure some love because we spent a lot of time in Disneyland. I think you really have to go do Grizzly River Rapids. I just went with some Disney World people who were like, "Oh, it's like Cali River. Never mind. We don't want to do it." And I said, well, I don't know. I've not been on Cali River Rapids in a long time, but you should try this. And so I really think that they were impressed. They said, oh my gosh, this is so much better. There's a lot more dynamic things going on. And there's a story as well, which is awesome. And then also California Screamin'. We got a roller coaster that's outdoors.
How did I not mention that?
I don't know. And right underneath is our Midway Mania that does not have the insane line that you guys have. It doesn't even have FastPasses. But it's definitely worth a visit if you're like, that's your one and done ride when you're at Disney World. You can go on it a couple of times here without the ridiculous waits. So definitely take advantage of that. And of course, Matterhorn and Toontown. Is that what it's called? Yeah, Toontown. We didn't even get over there. But
you want to call it Toonton?
Toonton. You've been watching too much PBS.
Yeah, remember that? Yeah,
yeah.
I was hoping you would get the joke. Yeah, that from anyone
absolutely
who doesn't get it, that's from Modern Family.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, you're right. So the one thing that's good about Hollywood Studios' version of Twister Mania though is they added the new track, and it has helped with the lines a bit.
Oh, good.
But yeah, I was again another thing I was completely shocked by. I walked into that area and I was like, 10 minutes for that? Are you kidding me?
Right?
You would never, and. The Under the Sea Voyage of the Little Mermaid, Journey of the Little Mermaid, is always a walk on there in California Adventure. And when you're at Magic Kingdom, you're waiting 30, 40 minutes for that one. And they have a great interactive queue. The crabs or everything are awesome. But in California Adventure, it's literally just you walk right on any time of the day. It's great. So yeah, I'm sorry. I was leaving stuff out there.
No. And I know I said I had to leave, but those were two that I just couldn't leave without mentioning because they're a lot of fun. And again, like just recently going with Disney World people, it was really interesting to see what they pointed out as different. there's another episode in here for just talking about the food.
Oh yeah.
But you could totally do a side by side of all the rides. But don't. I think my big tip would be don't shut something down because you don't particularly care for it at Disney World. Everything is unique in each park, and there will be things that you like better at Disney World. There will be things you like better at Disneyland, but don't avoid things because you normally do at one park. Really be open to exploring them with fresh eyes.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you just actually reminded me of the Disneyland Railroad, which is something else we didn't mention, which is completely different than a Walt Disney World version. So that's another one. But yeah, you're right. Don't skip it. Don't skip things because you think you have done it 100 times because you haven't. Because it's different in Disneyland. It's not always better.
No,
but
it's not.
Some of them are, and it's a completely different experience, and even the queues are different, and it's just I don't know. I love that park. California Adventure, like I said, has really, really grown on me, and Disneyland, Main Street USA, I'll say this a million times, Main Street USA and Disneyland is my favorite place on the planet. I love that. It's I just love that part of the park. It's phenomenal. But
we'll have to go for a stroll down it at D23.
Yes, I will be there. And hopefully, I think we're going to bring my kids out for the first, Amy and I are going to bring the kids out for their first Disneyland trip because they've been, they're ready. They've been talking about it. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to see them on Casey Jr. They are going to love it.
It's going to be fun. All right, Lauren. Well, thank you again. And for recording and for, giving your expertise in Disneyland, since I definitely don't have it, but I love the park.
Do.
And thanks. It's just a great park. And I hope this gets people out there to go see it because it's really, really fun.
I do too, Phil.
So thank you.
And if you are coming out, you got to book with Phil. He knows everything.
Thank you. That was a nice little plug.
Absolutely. No, truly. He will steer you right.
I'll try. I will not talk you into the most expensive room at the Grand California.
No.
I promise that. So Lauren, if people want to find out more about you have a lot going on. You have 8 podcasts, 3 websites. Where can I go to find more from you?
So primarily I teach SAT and ACT prep. Oop. My dog is chiming in here. Primarily, I teach test prep for high school students looking to go to college. I have a podcast about college admissions. You can learn all about that at higherscorestestprep.com. I also talk a lot about entrepreneurship. So I have a show called The Unsexy Side. If you search that in iTunes, you'll find it. Or you can go to laurengaggioli.com. And then my husband and I are starting a craft beer podcast and homebrewing podcast. So that's not up yet, but if you come over to laurengaggioli.com, I will let you know when it's coming out. So you can sign up for my email list there if that's something you're interested in.
Awesome. And I still have my first real homebrew kit sitting in my garage. I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to it this winter. This winter, it's my besides work, that's my mission this winter is to get my first batch of homebrew beer going. So I'm going to be bugging you like crazy this winter.
Absolutely. That's what I'm here for.
All right, Lauren. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Phil.
And that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Ear to There podcast. Thank you so much once again to my guest, Lauren Gaggioli. I really think Lauren and I could have talked about the differences and the similarities between Walt Disney World and Disneyland for another hour or two easy. But we'll save all that for another episode down the road. And as always, thank you so much for listening. It is always, always greatly appreciated. And as I always say, if you are enjoying the podcast, if you do listen every week, if you are picking up what I'm putting down, please just tell someone about the show. I'm sure you know someone out there somewhere who's a big Disney fan like you are. Just let them know about it and hopefully they'll enjoy it as well. And just remember, there will be a new episode of the Ear to There podcast each and every Monday morning. And also look for a new episode of the Ear to There podcast, Walt Disney World Word of the Week, each and every Wednesday morning. So thank you again so much for listening. And until next time, have a great week. Bye-bye.